Good morning, everyone. My name is Zach Dadson, and I'm a member of the Next Niagara Council. Thank you so much for joining us today. In my day job, I'm responsible for coordinating the outreach and community relations of Chris Biddle, our Member of Parliament here in St. Catharines. And I'm really passionate about the role that we can all play as active members of our local communities. This morning's panel discussion will begin to unpack how you can engage in your community as a young professional. We will hear the stories of community-focused leaders who will leave you with tangible ways that you can become a more active and engaged citizen. My favorite fictional president, Josiah Bartlett from the West Wing, once said, "Decisions are made by those who show up." And I'm very excited that we're going to get to hear from three panelists this morning who have done a lot of showing up, finding their passion, and getting involved. Our first panelist this morning is Tim Emringham. Tim is the founder of Dine Niagara and the Senior Director, Retail Credit Systems with RBC. Tim has over 20 years of business and technology leadership experience, including time as an entrepreneur here in the Niagara region, as the owner-manager of Total PC Services and Ash2Q Business Solutions, as well as his current company, Dine Niagara. His current role is a side hustle, which he equal parts as a way to earn passive income and a way to give back to the Niagara community. He has spent a lot of time working in innovation and commercialization and mentoring young entrepreneurs on how to bring their ideas to market and evolve to create real businesses out of those ideas. He is always looking for new ways to give back to Niagara and particularly to young entrepreneurs and emerging businesses. Our second panelist this morning is Kimberly Calderbank, partner, co-founder, and director of marketing and communications at Yellow Robot. Kimberly is an award-winning marketing professional with more than 15 years of experience in creating award-winning marketing content, planning fabulous events, and helping her clients get better media coverage and exposure. She's a partner and co-founder of Yellow Robot Marketing, a boutique digital agency with a hands-on, focused approach located in the heart of Burlington. Kim has worked with large industry shows like the Gourmet Food and Wine Expo, the Home Show, the Ontario Garden Show, and the Sound of Music Festival. Her print and media engagement has included stints on Global TV, CBC, Breakfast Television, Glamour Magazine, and the list goes on. She's worked with celebrities such as Roger Mooking, Brian Balmer, Jamie Oliver, and most every Canadian band that has ever performed on Burlington's waterfront. Kim is a true believer in the power of community. She sits on the board of directors at Distress Center Halton, is the host of Community Cultures on Your TV, and is a fierce promoter of business growth and sustainability. Recently, she ran for Burlington City Council, believing it's critical to see more women at decision-making tables. And Kim is the proud mom of two wonderful little individuals to whom she instills her passion for volunteerism and community engagement. And our third panelist this morning is Sean Vanderklis. Sean is Mississauga from Curve Lake First Nation, and he currently resides in St. Catharines. Sean has a strong connection to the Indigenous community here in the Niagara region and has a passion and desire to create change. And as such, through his volunteerism, he is the vice president of the Niagara Regional Native Center Board of Directors, a member of the City of St. Catharines Equity and Inclusion Committee, and a National Advisor Committee member to the Aboriginal Firefighters Association of Canada, now known as the National Indigenous Fire Safety Council. Professionally, Sean works as a journalist with Niagara Dailies via the Niagara Falls Review, and for News Talk 610 CKTB as the co-host of the show One Dish, One Mic, a radio program designed to discuss issues affecting Indigenous people. For his work with One Dish, One Mic, Sean was the recipient of the 2020 CJF CBC Indigenous Journalism Fellowship. Sean has recently accepted a position as an associate producer for CBC for its Indigenous flagship radio program, Unreserved. When Sean is not working, he can also be seen on the Powwow Trail. Sean is a grass dancer and frequently participates in powwows province-wide. In the off-season, Sean often presents with two educational cultural groups, Oniakara and White Pine Dancers. Sean's worldview has been shaped by his various leadership roles, and it is that worldview that Sean brings to the table when discussing issues affecting Indigenous people. Thank you so much, all three of you, for joining us this morning. So Kimberly, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit about how you began to get involved in the community and what led you to becoming the community leader that you are today?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having me, Zach. And it's nice to connect with fellow panelists as well. Excited for this conversation. I've always been extremely passionate about community. I grew up in Burlington, and through school and different youth groups I was involved in, had the ability to volunteer and to ultimately give back and get to know the community I lived in. And that sort of instilled at a very young age this passion and fire to help others, which is why why I feel it's so important for me to get my children involved now. I truly believe that my business and my professional career wouldn't be where it is today if I didn't volunteer and if I didn't have those connections and that network. And quite honestly, it's like a bit of a bug. Once you're in and once you help and you give, it's sort of like a need to give more and to continue your engagement. And it's truly so fulfilling to see great impact in the community that you serve. I can't say enough about how much my volunteerism and my corporate experience in volunteering as well has really helped to grow not only our business, but me as a person as well.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Tim, can you tell us a little bit about your story of how you got to become the community leader that you are today?
Yeah, I'm probably similar to Kimberly. I mean, I grew up in Niagara. I think the difference for me was I got started, really with community involvement, selfishly looking for a way to further business in Niagara. I was really looking for more business opportunities for myself, more career opportunities for myself. And so I really started to get involved in how could you create that kind of a business environment and economy in Niagara, which hasn't existed. Unfortunately, I'm still working downtown Toronto for my day job, so I haven't quite got there yet. But in getting in through that sort of business and economic, view of the world, I realized how powerful, the volunteerism and the work that you could do was, and how much reach you could have in Niagara. Just by being involved in some of these volunteer organizations. So I've found lots of different ways to get involved, from student mentoring at Brock. I've done a bunch of coaching of, some of their pitch competitions that they hold up there. I've always been involved as a, entrepreneur mentor wherever I get asked and get a chance. And most recently joined the board of directors at Jillian's Place, one of the most important organizations, unfortunately, in Niagara. We're on a mission to end gender-based violence, but unfortunately, we still need to be there. So it's been a great journey, but I've met so many people. I've got so much personal reward out of doing it. But really, for the last 20 years, that's not been the mission. It's the mission has been to give back and create a better community in Niagara, and the fact that I get to enjoy it and get something personally out of it is sort of a side benefit.
That's wonderful. Sean, I think that we might have Sean, you might having a little bit of webcam issues, but that's okay. We'll still be able to hear your voice. No problem. Can you tell us a little bit about your community involvement and what led you to be such an impactful community leader that you are today?
Yeah, thank you for this. First off, it's an honor to be here, and I do apologize for my technical difficulties. My story is slightly different than those who spoke before me. It really started at a young age, and I am where I am as a result of racism that I have faced in growing up as an Indigenous man living in an urban environment. Not knowing about my identity and my culture brought me to the Niagara Regional Native Center, and from there I really wanted to soak up all the information that was being taught to me. And as such, I was fortunate enough to be appointed to the board of directors as a youth representative, and from there my whole leadership career just skyrocketed. I took over provincially, managed to make it to a national board, and have been serving in various leaderships throughout Canada for the last 13 years. So it's a little different, but I mean, the goal is still the same: is to create that change, to do what's right for our community.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Tim, I'm going to start with you on this question. What advice would you give for young professionals who are looking to become more active in the community? What sorts of first steps would you suggest that they take?
I think there are so many different places that you could turn. Especially in Niagara, there are a lot of organizations that are looking for help and are willing to have you come in and join in. But much like what you choose to do during your day and during your day job or your side hustle or whatever, you've got to be passionate about it. You've got to have an interest in it and care about the cause or the mission of what you're working with. It could be a care and a passion for learning about a specific topic or a specific segment of the population that needs your help. but you got to have something that you care. So just trying to look at something that kind of surrounds the things that you actually in your day-to-day life care about and are passionate about, and look for the organizations that play in that space, and then just actively reach out. Whether or not they're advertising for volunteers or looking for somebody specifically, just reaching out to the office. In most cases, they will be able to provide you with ways that you can participate, ways that you can get involved, and that's probably the first step towards a leadership role with some of those groups. But you just got to take the first step and get started. Find something you love and step towards it.
I'm so glad that you said that. I think a really important part of today's conference is recognizing that lots of times I think as young professionals, we think that, there must be more professional people or people with more experience or smarter people out there doing those things. And I think that that's really not often the case. We are well positioned to get involved. And so, Sean, can you tell us a little bit about what your recommendations for kind of first steps for people getting involved in community leadership might be?
I think it really has to do with taking opportunities that present themselves to you and be willing to, I guess, take that leap of faith that may scare you at first. I think getting involved really has to do with, again, networking, coming to events like this, right? And just accepting the things that are put before you. And understand that when you are in a position of leadership, that you deserve to be in that position of leadership, right? And be confident in that decision. So those would be my recommendations.
That's really great. Yeah, Kimberly, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would want to echo the passion component for sure, but I would also want people to understand that it's okay to sample and to try. So to find organizations and check them out, and it's sort of like courting or dating, right? If it doesn't work, find something else. You want to find people that are like-minded and that are passionate about the same things. So it's okay to go to multiple different agencies or locations and check out their mission and values, volunteer a little bit, see if it's the right fit. If it's not, move on and find something else. And the entrepreneurial spirit in me says, and if you don't, make it yourself. Start an organization, right? Make action and take on as a leader yourself and start something new. And we've seen through COVID excellent examples of people really stepping up and seeing a need. So if you see a need and there isn't somewhere where you can go, start it yourself.
That's great feedback. Absolutely. Sean, I'm going to start with you on this question. What does active citizenship mean to you? And how can young professionals make actionable steps to be active citizens in their community?
For me, it's about being well informed. I mean, doing something for the sake of doing something is fantastic, right? I just said that. That's a yes to any opportunity, which is good. But in order to be active in it is when you get on those boards of directors, understand what your role is when you're on that board of directors. Understand what the organization's mission is when you're on that board of directors. Being visible too is very important. So. Being seen in the community, being at these events, being at these networking sessions, things like that.
That's great. Yeah, Kimberly?
As you mentioned in my bio, Zach, I ran for municipal council, and spoiler alert, I didn't win, but quite honestly, I think it was potentially the best thing that ever happened to me. And one of the things that I often spoke about at doors or continue to speak about is you can't really complain unless you're active and engaged, right? So being active means just that, actually partaking and participating, because that's where we can make the most amount of impact, is when we're actually active in our roles. And Sean really hit the nail on the head there as well. And when you are, it's not just to check a box to say that you did, or to say, oh, I sit on this board and this board. It's actually giving of that service as well, because it's unfortunate there are people that will just sit and idle by, but actually being active is so much more rewarding because you can be a part of that impact as well.
Absolutely. Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have covered it really well. The only one thing I would add, and probably ties back really to your run for municipal council, is to be active in the community and be an active citizen. You got to be listening. You got to be hearing what's actually important and going on. We've gone through the strangest 18 months that any of us have ever experienced, and it's been this giant roller coaster. And it feels like every day there's something new that comes out. And certainly, exploring my relationship with Canada is different this week, and trying to understand, what that means for me as a citizen in Niagara and a citizen in Canada. But you have to be listening to the things that are actually going on around the community, and then find your place and where you fit. And then definitely, as they've said, jump in and give, and don't make it a ticky box. It's, this is all about, action and activity.
No, I think that's so important. That is really important that we engage in things that are passionate to us. Such as something is so important that each of you highlighted, but to do so meaningfully, and to I think that we kind of learn sometimes that less might be more, and to focus on things that to zoom in and focus on things that are really, really important to us, and give us our all, rather than, you're so right, checking on, I'm a member of 17 boards or whatever the case may not have the same impact as really getting your hands into one or two different things. Kimberly, can you tell us a little bit about what community focused leadership means to you, and how do you demonstrate being a community focused leader in Burlington?
Yeah, community means so many things to so many people, and it's sort of become a bit of a buzzword, right? Like it's this community I belong in, and that community, and community to me isn't just Burlington. It isn't just Halton for me. It's different pockets of people, and different organizations as well. And we sort of have really seen that shift of community. So being involved in the community and being a part of the community and active in the community can mean so many different things to different people. So you might not identify with how I partake in community, but for me, giving back and serving and being of service to the community. So I'm very hands-on in my approach. Myself and my children will go to local churches for their dinners and their meals and help provide and serve. I like to prep and things like that. That for me is what fulfills my cup and makes me feel as though I'm giving back. Recently, the United Way here had our local Love Day. So we packed at Yellow Robot, we packed homeless kits for those that are living on the streets or that are experiencing homelessness. So there's different ways to be sort of active and engaged in your community in that sense. But I also, as you mentioned, started a program on Your TV, which is our local news station here, about community cultures. And the program, really, my pitch was to showcase little pockets of community. So whether it's the volunteers at the organizations, whether it's the board here, my show that's coming up are youngsters that have gone out and started their own community. So one young lady is creating a baking circle where on a weekly basis, she joins other kiddos on Zoom and they bake together. But that's a community, right? And she's providing a service and she's giving back and engaging. So there's so many different ways that you can look at it. And again, it's one of those things that you have to think about, how will this be most effective for me? Because if you're not enjoying it and you're not, it's not all about the reward, of course, but if you're not enjoying it, you're only going to give so much to it, right? So that's that time to move on and find something else.
I think that's such an important point. I know we talk about in our digital age so much nowadays, but you're so right that there are many different aspects or avenues for us to engage different groups of people. I think that's a really, really great feedback. Tim, could you expand on that? How would you describe community-focused leadership to you, and how do you demonstrate it?
Yeah, I think for me, when I hear community-focused leadership, it's kind of an intersection between, my business interests and the volunteerism and the giving back. Giving back is absolutely a component of it. And that could be in a volunteer status. It could be working with charities or community groups, but it could also be working, on a board with the city, or, helping to further the conversation in the community itself. But it also should tie probably back to, how you approach business. I think we'll probably touch on the business aspects of it as well later. But I built Dine Niagara, and that's really what I'm here with today. That's my side hustle, I'll call it. And the whole focus of it is community driven, right? It's about creating a community of restaurants that don't have to pay outrageous fees to, big corporations. It's about, promoting amongst themselves in an industry that's been hard hit. It's about connecting those back to the community through charity and community partnerships. The entire thing is built around the word community. That's the whole point. And I think you can tie all of those things together. And to me, that's when it sort of becomes real for me, is when I've connected all of those dots. It's the giving back, it's the business, it's the model, and everything is motivated around that mission. And then it's exciting.
That's so great. Yeah, thank you, Tim. Sean, can you talk a little bit about how you would view community-focused leadership and how you demonstrate it here in Niagara?
Yeah, most definitely. I think it goes down to breaking down the two words community and leadership. And as much as we want to take ownership of those words, saying that this is my community and this is how I'm going to lead, for me, it's about understanding who your community is and how your community recognizes the leaders, right? So, as an example, I acknowledge that in Niagara, the Indigenous community is my community, and the form of leadership that would be required within that community might be different than, let's say, another cultural group or another business organization, the Chamber of Commerce, Next Niagara. And it's really, to me, it's about leading in a way that the community has that the community has said is acceptable, and understanding the parameters, right? Because if you come in with your sense of leadership and your sense of leadership only, without the consideration of other people, so on and so forth, I doubt that you'll actually become a leader. And if you do, I doubt that you're not actually going to stay a leader that long. So I think it's really about being flexible, being open to change, and most importantly, being visible in the community too. Like, you have to be seen. Um, I think part of the issues with politics right now is that we don't sometimes see our leaders. We don't see them at community events. We don't see them participating, and so on and so forth. So being there, having your faces heard, and talking with the people too, right? Talking with the community itself.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point, Sean. I'm so glad that you raised. And I think that over the last year, we've had a lot of events that have really reminded us that we have a really big responsibility to listen, especially as leaders in our communities, to listen to those around us, and not decide. I always, and not tell everyone where we're going, but you're right, to have those conversations and listen, and then figure out what the best next steps forward and how we can help bring those kinds of people together, and in terms of decision making. And I think that that's a really great aspect to highlight. Now, just kind of taking a little bit of a business lens on this, and I know that there are many people who work in private industry joining us this afternoon or this morning. For business owners and the entrepreneurs among us, how can businesses align their missions with community needs? And I'll start with Kimberly.
Um, this is a great question for me because this is literally how Yellow Robot began. I was in the corporate world. I was working for other people. I didn't even know that being an entrepreneur or owning my own business was on the scope of things for me. I wanted to be a teacher. So this is a big transition for me. And so in being a part of organizations like Sound of Music and the shows that I worked on, I kept getting asked in my volunteer work, can you help us with this? Can you do this? And then people wanted to pay me to do that, right? And then it was like, okay, you're good at this. And so we started Yellow Robot, but I would say about 60% of our clients are not-for-profits. That's our sweet spot. That is part of who we are. If you work for Yellow Robot, if you're part of our team, you know that you'll be picking up garbage on Green Day here in Burlington. You know that you'll be bagging meals. You know that this is part of our work culture because our community has raised us up and given us the opportunity to be the business that we are today. So we will never turn our backs on not-for-profits or charity, and we will always do our best. So it is literally a part of our brand and who we are. And if you wouldn't mind, I just want to add to Sean's comment from the last question about leaders and showing up. When I was running municipally, I went to every not-for-profit and charity and made it my mandate to get to know, because I truly feel you can't serve your community without knowing who your community is. And one really spoke to me, and I continued to go back once a week. The folks at Open Doors just became a part of my family. And after the election, I went back. And one of the gentlemen stopped me and said, "Why are you here? Like, you didn't win. We didn't expect to see you again." And it was a moment for me because I wasn't there because I was just trying to show them, like, look at me, and then I was going to bail on them. And I think that's the big difference with being a strong leader, is continuing to lead even when you're not being recognized for it and still being ingrained in that community. And that was such an aha moment for me that made me really think about every decision I make and every charity we do involve ourselves with, because I'm not just there to look at me and take a picture, which some politicians unfortunately do, and some of our leaders do. So I think that to me has set a tone for how I'll move forward.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. And I often, just in terms of my day job, in terms of our outreach and things, I always think it's so important that community leaders are leaders because they serve, and they don't serve because they are community leaders. And I think that is a really, really important. And you're right. It's just so much more genuine. And I think you don't come across as genuine if it's the other way around. Yeah, Sean, can you talk a little bit about that kind of business and entrepreneurial lens, and about the importance of businesses aligning with their missions with community needs?
Yeah, I think one of the mistakes that sometimes business owners and entrepreneurs do, not by anybody's fault, is they focus too much. They get siloed specifically on their business, right? You open a restaurant, you want to be the best restaurant ever, and that is your goal. That's what you set out, while not acknowledging that communities change. The needs of communities constantly change. So for me, my recommendation would be to understand the community that you're living in, understand the people that you're serving, understand the people that you're trying to work with, so on and so forth, so you can best meet their needs. Operating a business in a community is about a partnership between you and your potential clients. So in order for that partnership to work, there has to be some sort of level of reciprocity. If you are simply just offering services and if you're just taking money and not giving anything back, there's no acts of reciprocity that is occurring. So I think it's about kind of just expanding your view on how you can make this community a better place.
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. And Tim, can you add your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys have really nailed it. But it also comes down to authentically embedding that in the mission of your organization, right? If you're an entrepreneur or business owner, you have a great opportunity, unlike when you're working in the corporate world, to dictate what the mission is and what your culture is going to be and what's important to your organization. From day one, Niagara was built for community. It was built to support community. It doesn't mean we're not going to make money. It doesn't mean you can't get paid for your services. But to Sean's point, it has to have value. It has to have value both to our customers in terms of the restaurant partners we have. It has to have value to our customers in terms of the people who come on, who want to support local and want to do a good thing for the restaurants and are choosing our service for that reason. But it also has to have value for the community in which we're playing. And so it's the combination of all those three things. And because it was built in right at the very beginning, it is truly an authentic statement. When we work with our charity and community partners, they hear us, they understand us. We're active and dedicating time and working with them to design their promotions and make sure that what we're doing aligns with our mission and their mission. And it's 1 + 1 = 3 when we work together. The same thing with the restaurants I work with. They understand that I'm here trying to help find ways for them to do better, to get that extra sale, to, increase their cart size. So, all the things that matter to them right now when they can't be open. But that's, it's about being authentic and build it right into the mission of the organization. And then you can't get sidetracked and siloed because, you're not making a decision based on what the next dollar is. You're making a decision based on what the next value creation is. And that I think is really key.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sean, I'm going to start with you on this next question. How do young professionals, and I think that this is a good lens in terms of people who are starting out or looking to get more engaged in their community for the first time, how do young professionals make meaningful community connections?
I think it's about taking advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you via school, right? If you're in school, these are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. So maintaining those relationships, again, being visible in that community itself, whatever it is you want to do. At Brock, I was very active in some of the social clubs there. Growing up as a teenager, I was very active at the Niagara Regional Native Center. It's about really, really taking advantage of the opportunities, because as you grow, your network of people are going to grow, right? And you're going to grow together. As an example, I went to high school with somebody who works with Next Niagara. And as we both grew and as we both became more successful, here we are now she's hosting this panel or participating in this panel. I'm speaking at this panel, right? So yeah, that would be my biggest recommendation, is just be mindful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Tim, can you add to that?
I think in everywhere I've been, I mean, I've lived most of my life in Niagara, and I can say that Niagara is a pretty amazing region. It is a pretty cool place with a lot of really cool people, and but I've had the same experience in Burlington. I had the same experience in Hamilton. Honestly, look around at the people who are active in the community and just reach out. If they're active and they're visible leaders, they are going to make time for you. That's just the nature of the beast, right? They didn't become a visible, active leader in the community without being willing to make time for people. Reach out, meet people, get involved in networking. Those are the ways you're going to, find what you like to do, make the connections. And I know people reach out to me all the time, and I'm happy to connect them to somebody else. It may not be me that's going to be a benefit to you, but, I've got a network. I've got people who I know. And so feel empowered to reach out, because everybody's here trying to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Kimberly?
Yeah, just to echo again, that network component is your community. And we've built Yellow Robot literally on people coming to us and saying, I love what you guys are about. Are you hiring? I've never posted a job, because if we fit, we'll figure it out. And if you're looking to be of service and you have that mark, like, it's just that sort of full circle thing for me. It's incredible the amount of people who don't realize ask, because you never know what the answer is going to be, right? And again, we wouldn't be where we are today if we didn't ask and ask those questions and make those connections. So it's so incredibly important to get to know your community and get to know who your mentors and sponsors within the community are. There are young people in our community that when I hear somebody talking about another position or another job, I'm out there talking about, because they've got to know me. It's that sort of full circle, holistic approach to community, which is so very important.
Yeah, and I think each of you kind of highlighted on this, and I just want to emphasize it too, that I think it's so important that you do good work in the community and get engaged for the sake of getting engaged in the things that you're passionate about, without worrying about what the end game is going to be or where it's going to lead to. And that good work begets good work. And I think, Sean, you had that specifically good example that that you're, and Tim too, that as your networks grow and you continue to be a positive and contributing member of the community, more opportunities will present themselves just by nature of the good things that you were doing. And so I think that it's always, sometimes it kind of feels a little bit overwhelming of, you have this idea of, where you want to go, but you don't know how to get there. And I think it's just kind of get the ball rolling and start doing good things in the community, and that those opportunities will present themselves. Mm-hmm. Kimberly, I'm going to start with you on this question. And because I think this is a good opportunity too, for those of us who are already a little bit actively engaged in the community. Maybe we already sit on a board, or maybe we are, volunteer our time at a festival or anything else like that. What words of advice would you have for young professionals looking to elevate their leadership in the community and kind of take it from that medium level of engagement to much more engagement than they're already at?
The first thing that I would say is, certainly if you are interested in continuing that growth, it isn't easy to just sit on a board. You have to apply. There's only so many spaces. So you need to start bottom up and start volunteering at organizations that you'll have a passion to grow into that board position. I continue to apply for boards. I'm not accepted all the time. It's an ongoing process. So certainly if you know that that's the trajectory that you're on, start now and grow that, and don't be disappointed. Again, like, I've lost out on positions, I've lost out on clients, but those are where our learnings happen. So know that, when one door closes, another one opens. And I know that's sometimes hard to believe, but it is true. And ultimately things happen that you can continue to take as a learning. So certainly start now. It's never too early. And also it's that ask component. So as I mentioned, I act as a mentor and a sponsor, and I'm out in community talking about others and trying to bring people up as well. So find those people that will act on your behalf and that will speak on your behalf as well. That's such an important tool as a young professional, is having somebody say, hey, do you know Tim? He's really awesome at what he does right now. You should check out what he's up to, right? And having that continued conversation on behalf of others is so important. So find those people that can do that for you.
And I really loved what you had said there, but at the beginning of your comment too, just in terms of that, that it's okay not to succeed all of the time, and that running for Burlington City Council, you didn't get elected, but it presented all these other opportunities and learnings that you had from that experience that have helped you grow as a leader in your community. I think are really, really important things to remember, that that we're not going to bat 1,000 all the time, and that we will still learn and grow throughout all of those experiences. Sean, can you
It
talk
also,
about, go ahead, please.
sorry.
Yeah.
No, it
No.
also just shows how passionate you are, right? If you keep coming back. I think that's really what the lesson is. Like, and it was funny because I said to my partner, you know, I don't think you should win the first time, because you got to come back and prove that you really wanted it. Like, those are the people that you want to vote for, right? The people that keep trying. So when I lost, my partner was like, so now what do you think of saying that, right? Like, do you still believe in it? But yeah, best thing that happened is not always being accepted.
Absolutely. And you for sure continue to grow. For basketball fans, I know that the Toronto Raptors, if they had won the championship the first year they were in the playoffs, it may not have meant as much to us other than after that 7-year run. Sean, can you talk to us a little bit about words of advice you'd have for those who are engaged in the community, but looking to elevate their level of engagement?
Understanding what you can take on, as well as understanding what you're passionate about, right? Because simply because you're passionate about it doesn't mean that you would necessarily have the ability to take that on. So for me, it's really about understanding your limitations. A lot of times, so what I was saying earlier, say yes to any opportunity that comes. That is the goal. You're starting out, you want to make a name, say yes. How you elevate that is determining what you're willing to take the abuse that's going to come. Sitting on a board of directors, like Kimberly said, is not easy. Oftentimes our meetings go late. Oftentimes there's disagreements. Oftentimes there are hard issues that make you second guess maybe why you're here. So to elevate that, understand what you're willing to do and willing to sacrifice and willing to put in to elevate your community leadership. And once you have that conversation with yourself, I think the sky will be the limit.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. It's something that took me a long time to realize. And I've started to think about my community engagement in two different aspects, that you can be an organizer or a supporter, and you don't have to be an organizer all the time to be engaged in the community. And I think that it took me a long time to recognize that when I sit on a board or I'm part of a project or I'm working on something, you don't have to say yes and do all of the things and then kind of overwhelm yourself. And then you're kind of doing 70% of what you should be doing, that you can cheerlead and show up and participate in some things, and then give 100% on the organizing of other things. And it doesn't take away, it doesn't mean that you are less of a leader, but you are focusing and spending your time as a resource on the things that are really important to you. I think that is super important. Yeah, Tim, can you add in terms of those looking to grow their experience?
Yeah, I think there's a couple elements, and you both have kind of touched on it, right? Failure is okay, but sometimes it's not even a failure when you get a no, and it's knowing your limitations in terms of what you can take on, but it's also know what value you can actually bring to an organization. A board is made up of a diverse group of people, right? We need people who are governance experts. We need people who understand human relations. We need legal experts. We need, technology experts now, because the nature of the world we live in. And the board needs to have people with all of those diverse backgrounds, in addition to the cultural backgrounds and the societal backgrounds. So I've applied for a lot of boards that I didn't get on, had great conversations, got along really well with the interviewers and other board members, I'm friends with some of them in regular life. I just wasn't a fit. And that's not a failure. That's just the makeup of the board at the moment. And so keep trying, but you got to understand what you're going to bring to the table in order to be able to communicate that value, and clearly identify whether you can fit or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got about 5 minutes left. And just before we wrap up, I want to just provide each of you an opportunity to kind of wrap up your thoughts and add anything that you hadn't mentioned yet, or anything that you wanted to make sure that our panelists or our attendees are taking away from this morning's session. And Sean, I'll start with you.
Sorry, my getting messages from my work. The joys
No
of being
problem.
For me, it is having an idea of who you are and kind of what you stand for and where you want to be. And I think once you get a firm understanding of yourself or the business or whatever it is you're trying to represent to the community or bring to the community, just have faith in it. Trust the process. Like everybody here has said, it is okay to fail. Failure is not a bad thing. Failure is a learning lesson on how not to do something. We know this way doesn't work, so we're going to do it another way, right? And you keep trying, you keep learning, you keep evolving. And that's another thing that I want to add is don't be scared to change. Just because something has always been done a way doesn't mean we can't improve it, right? Evolve, take notes, come to these classes, listen to Kim, listen to Tim, right? The goal is to constantly learn. The goal for me always is to be better today than I was yesterday. So I think if you do all those things I just rambled off, you'll be successful.
I think those are so important. And how many of us as young professionals have joined a board or been part of an organization, and you ask, well, why do we do this thing the way that it is? And like, well, that's the way that it's always been done. And so we know. And so I think that's such an important lesson for us as young professionals, to not be afraid to mix it up and say, look, well, are there better ways in which we can do the things that we are doing? Yeah, Tim, can you give us your final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I started out in my career, and I took a really bizarre path through career and life and entrepreneurship and all kinds of things. I've started a number of businesses, and when I started off, I really was very focused on measuring myself based on the success of the business. And I think, when I learned that success is not measured by the dollars and cents in your balance sheet or your income statement or any of those things, it's really measured based on the value of what you're creating and putting back into the world. And yes, you should be rewarded for that. You should be able to afford a house. You should be able to, all those things should be there. But it was once I realized that I should be measuring myself based on the value that I'm creating in the world, as opposed to what was going into my pocket, that everything elevated. My career took off. My ability to be a leader within, small and now very large organizations, has accelerated. I realized all those learning things that I needed to do because I was measuring my success differently. So just be really conscious of how you measure your success in your career. It's not about yeses and nos. It's not about winning deals. It's not about any one individual thing. If you think about an overall measure of success as what am I putting back into the world, you will be rewarded for it. It will pay back. Absolutely.
Yeah, Kimberly?
Yeah, I think my main message is always just to go for it. And you never know, like jump in and see what happens. And it's always the best experience no matter what, because you're learning or it's working. I heard this wonderful quote the other day. Somebody asked me, like, what is your goal? What are you trying to do? Like, why does this even matter? And I struggled with that. And then I heard somebody say, I just want to be significant. I want to make significant impact. And now that is my every day is, am I being significant with this? Yes, no, move on. And it's helped me really streamline my efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a question from an attendee. So really quickly before we wrap up, I'm going to start with Sean and then Kimberly and then Tim. In terms of engaging government, I think it's important in terms of the things that we are passionate about. Oftentimes that intersects with approaching and engaging with our MPPs or MPs. And so Sean, can you talk a little bit about how to effectively reach out to members of Parliament and MPPs in terms of affecting change?
My response might be a little crazy, but harass them. It's really that simple. I do my best to make sure that Chris Biddle knows my name, that Jenny Stevens and Jeff Birch and Wayne Gates know my name, and whatever that cause may be. Also, be true to the cause that you're trying to advocate for people, right? Like, when Chris Biddle hears my name, I want him to associate me with the Niagara Regional Native Center, right? Because that is the cause that is true to who I am. So anytime anything remotely Indigenous comes up that he is dealing with as our member of Parliament, he better think, oh shit, we have Sean Vanderklis who's active in this community, right? I want him to again remember my name. So be persistent. Don't take no for an answer. And the other thing too is MPs, politicians, as much as they're leaders in our community, their job fundamentally is to serve, right? To serve us as constituents, to serve us as residents, and to serve us as people who just live on this earth together. So if they're taking on that role and they don't make time for you, don't stop, beat down those doors.
Absolutely. And, just as Chris Biddle's assistant, I'll tell you that it's always important to reach out. You think that it's hard to get in touch with those members of parliament or MPPs or whatever the case. It's not, and Sean's right, demand that they spend their time listening to the things that you're concerned about. And I think that it's important to recognize that they don't always have the answers. So it's important to challenge them to work with the community members on solving those problems together. And so don't, I think that that's really, really important, but don't feel that there's this big barrier that you're not able to reach out to them. Sean's right. Reach out to them on Twitter, reach out to them on social media, and ask for their time, because they have the responsibility to hear your concerns as constituents. But thank you so much, everyone. Sean, Kimberly, and Tim, for your time this morning. We really, really appreciate it. And I think that we got some great tangible ways that we all can think about how we engage our community leadership and get involved in our community. So we really, really appreciate your time. And on behalf of Next Niagara, thanks so much to the panelists and also to our attendees for spending your time with us so far today. We really, really appreciate you taking the time out to engage with us. Have a great rest of your day.